everybody. Welcome to the next in the series of these great little virtual online interviews that we're calling Askam Asks. My name is Richard Askam. You see what we did there in terms of the title. So I'm very, very, very pleased to be doing these interviews for this event. It's going to be, I think, a great way to showcase what the future is capable of, what's possible. And I have one of my favorite dreamers, future dreamers, with me today, my guest, good friend, Morten from Inkish TV. Morten, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Richard. And I have to give you something that is like Askam Asks, and this will be a right-off response, right?
Nice. I see what you did there. I think there's a series in this. I'm going to hang on. There's Netflix are on the line. They want to talk to us. So
okay, so you had to hang up already. Okay.
So I'd also like to thank Morten for choosing with such a wonderful, vibrant, colourful backdrop to be filmed from today. I've gone to some effort to style my studio here. He, as you can see, has decided to film from the inside of a prison cell for no apparent reason. But there we are. So everything
that is basically how it feels to be at work when you work with English. That is the background of the office, right?
Well, there you go. There's our first question. How is work at the moment?
Well, I don't think I have been as busy as I am now for a long, long time. So from a potential of work, we have more than ever. We did. Personally, I did 47 of what we call all the Skype, which is like 20 to 30, 40 minutes conversations with industry leaders from Hong Kong, Middle East, Europe, Iceland, US, Mexico, Brazil. So the journey itself has been fantastic. Inkish India have made great interviews. Also in India, we spoke to Dr. Lal Assam who is a very recognized specialist in pandemics and especially the coronavirus. So that has also been part of what we've been doing. So I think that we are busier than ever, but as many media and industry has experienced, all the paid for jobs have disappeared almost from day to day. So it's been a little hard to get through, but we got aid packages from the Danish government. That helps us a little bit. And fortunately, we had some jobs that were still produced and delivered. So we feel that we're pretty safe from that perspective right now.
Okay. Well, what I should do, of course, is for those of you, and I can't imagine there's anybody in the world that doesn't know Morten, but for those of you that don't, take a couple of minutes, Morten, and tell us a little bit about yourself. You're coming to us live today from Copenhagen, so tell us a little bit about life in Denmark in this awful pandemic that we're all in the middle of, and then tell me a little bit about Inkish.
Yeah, well, as you already know, I'm Morten, and I live just outside Copenhagen. And if we start with the situation here in Denmark, things are fortunately getting better. 2 weeks ago, the smallest kids started to school again. We got back to office yesterday, and the bigger kids are going back to school on hopefully on Monday next week. The shopping malls are open. Not every shop in the mall, but some of the malls are opening, and a lot of things is starting to open. And we have been quite fortunate because we had a quite hard lockdown, but we didn't have we didn't have a high mortality, and we didn't have a lot of sick people. So from that perspective, we're very fortunate in Denmark, of course. So that is really, really nice. And now to something that is a little bit more positive, I would say. Inkish, we started this 6 years ago. We have 2 platforms. We have Inkish TV, which is essentially a film platform for the printing industry only. And then we have my newest little baby is called Inkish.news, which is a self-serve platform where everybody from the industry can write articles, upload films. It's kind of a blog tool, but we don't see it as a blog tool. It's more like some really fun things to do, and we have got a way bigger presence in the market in a very short time than I anticipated. Also because I did some quite provocative articles about Heidelberg and all the things they are doing these days. So maybe that helped a little bit, I would say. But
so this is how I know you to be, which and I'm gonna give you a name now, which is the print provocateur. Because
Provocateur.
provocateur. I think you and I met at an event in Brussels 2-3 years ago now, I think, and instantly sort of hit upon a shared desire to be honest about not what we'd like to have happen, but what actually is happening. And I think one of the things that you do so well at Inkish is poke the tiger, and see what happens. You're in a privileged position to do that with the growth of Inkish. You're hearing opinions and seeing views from all around the world. So for the benefit of our audience today, give me your overview of where you think, honestly, and I know you will do that, where the print industry is going. As a result of the pandemic, everything has changed. So where do you think it's going next?
Oh yeah, that is it's a good question, and it's a very hard question to answer. Obviously, I think that one of the things that I think that most people have to realize now is that the market will not change to what it was before. I think that there's a lot of signs on that the corona crisis also kind of pushed to not just the pandemic, but also the fact that the recession that everybody has been talking about is now maybe not in full power right now, but it's starting to get going. And that is, of course, something that is for a lot of people sad because it often leads to unemployment, to weaker economy and those kind of things. But it also have advantages, and I think that we should, of course, focus on the advantages. The advantages of a recession is mainly that is when all innovations are fueled. The people and the companies who are able to embrace new problems and new ways of thinking, they are the ones that will be the leading companies in the future. And I think that is one of the things that I found out during all these the sessions I did over the Skype in the past couple of weeks is that a lot of companies have great ideas. A lot of people are ready to embrace the future. And if anybody believes that it's the end for the printing industry, I think that it's not. I think the printing industry has a bright future, and I think that we have a lot of innovation. I think we have a lot of technologies that are really, really interesting. And of course, it's a question when you can start getting to show these equipment, and not just on virtual events, but also in like real life thing, right?
Yeah, that's kind of going to be my next question, really. And you framed it quite beautifully there, that it's the end of the past and the start of the future.
Yes.
So with that in mind, and one of the things that I've been talking to all of my guests about is how you see the future of the exhibition side of the industry, because for a few years now, I think if everybody's honest, they can see that it's been a declining sort of vehicle, if you like, for that new information, for that touch point for the industry. And also, and I say this from personal experience, we spend a lot of time traveling to events all over the world, and a lot of times sit on the plane going, why did I do that? And why did I spend all of this money to go and see all of this? What do you think is going to come out of this from the exhibition side of the industry, and where will those positives be?
Before starting talking about the positives, I think that you also have to evaluate the current situation a little bit, because with the postponements and the cancellations of a lot of events, I think it has pushed some boundaries in the industry. For example, when we have been used to go to Drupa every 4 or 5 years since the 50s, basically. And I think that most vendors in the industry have been developing technology to showcase in these 4-year cycles. And with the postponing, a relatively late postponing of a huge trade show like Drupa, caused a lot of people to rethink the strategy on using trade shows as the engine for delivering new product releases. And I think that is something that the coronavirus, in my opinion, has already proven, that nobody can ever in the future deliver technology and present this to the public based on trade shows. So that means that I think that will actually lead to something that is better for the printers, because the printers will have faster and better access to new technology, because the vendors will deliver these to the market when they're ready, not wait for a trade show. But that raises the second question, which is very important. What is the reason for going to a trade show then? Because if you're not going to a trade show to see new equipment, then why? And I think that one of the things that also the crisis have learned everybody is the fact that we can talk to even more people using Skype and Zoom.
I told you my dogs would bark, didn't I? And sorry, Morten. And there they go. They do this every day around about this time. So maybe I should stop doing interviews at this time. We'll edit that out. So, so let's go back a little bit and talk to me about why people are going to go to trade shows.
Yeah, because one of the things that the pandemic has showed us is clearly that we can communicate using electronic means like Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams and all these beautiful technologies. However, I think that one thing that we have also learned is that we need the physical things. We need to be, hugging, shaking hands, and all the things that we can do. We miss that. So events from a network perspective will definitely come back. Maybe not as big as they used to be, but in other ways. And of course, some of the questions you can ask: will you ever hug anybody? Will you ever shake hands with anybody? Or how will that return to some kind of normal situation at some point? And I believe it will. That I think will actually go faster than most anticipate, because I think it's a really, really important part of being humans is that we have that physical interaction with each other as well.
So yeah, I agree, and that chimes with everything that I've spoken with my guests this week. Actually, that human connection is where the value sits. Anyway, I mean, I've said this before. You've heard me say this before. That whenever we go to print conferences, the real action happens at the bar. It doesn't happen on the floor of the show. Because that's how people like to interact. And I think that's the area, as you say, the networking, the human networking. Will continue even if the sort of the practical and equipment sales happen in a different way. One thing that's quite interesting, and you do more traveling than anybody I've ever met. In fact, I'm convinced you're a pilot. But one thing that we will all see now, and companies will all see, is how the balance between how much has been spent on travel, as against now in this last couple of months, that the efficiencies and the productivity has remained the same. Do we need to travel as much in order to be able to do the same? What's your thought as a big traveler?
That's also a good question. It's also a difficult question to answer, because we have done a lot of these films, both virtually during this past couple of months, which has actually turned out to be better than I suspected it to be. But what you don't get from the remote is the unexpected and the unnoticed, and the things where you see something that you didn't expect to see. Because everything we do when it's more online is more planned, at least for most of the events. So I think that the time for example, us will be, of course, going back to more normal times also when it comes to travel. Mm-hmm. But as you know, we have a strategy where we are we are already in the middle of establishing a lot of English affiliates. We have one in Sweden, English Sweden, Germany, Italy, India, Mexico, and we are next week announcing Brazil and Colombia as well. So we have the advantage that having local teams basically allows us to send out people that live in the country. So that is, of course, that will eliminate a lot of the need for travel.
Sure.
And it will also give us something that I don't think any other media can do right now. We are able to do all our content in German, in Spanish, in Portuguese, in local languages, and giving the world stories that have a way broader reach than most other media would be able to do. And we can do that without the travel cost. We can do it without the time constraints. We can do it without the jet lags.
Yeah.
And we can get the better stories, because now I don't have to find somebody I don't know.
Yes.
I could just ask my partners to find the best ones in their region. And I think that is quite interesting. Just a very short note here. Carla Menendez, who is our country manager for English Mexico, for example, her company is a 42 years old publishing company, and it was founded by her grandfather, who is now 93 years old, and he's still an active editor, right? He works and goes to trade show in Latin America. And I mean, just that story. So you would never know. I would never know if it wasn't because of having that international pitch to what we do, right? That's also why we met each other. And I think that kind of thing is something that the world needs.
Yeah.
And I also believe that we will continue traveling. To be honest, because I was not 100% finished when it came to the trade shows, we actually yesterday sit down and talked a little bit about how we see the future of the trade shows in 2020. And I don't think we will see trade shows in 2020 when it comes to the Europe and to the US, to be honest. I hope so, but I have my doubts. On the other hand, we have, which is also managed by Drupa people, we have All in Print in Shanghai. Drupa also have a relatively quite big show in the Philippines. And since Asia is far further ahead of the corona crisis right now, I think that we will see some product launches and some of the really new stuff coming at exhibitions from Asia rather than from the Western world right now. So we expect to travel to China to cover the show. We are even considering doing the show live 8 hours a day, because that's part of what we can do as a publishing company. We can basically showcase things in a live environment that is, in my opinion, fantastic, because it has like instant production value from those perspectives. Right?
Sure. So the future is different, but the future is bright.
I think from an English perspective, I think it's very bright. I think, unfortunately, also that when it comes to and that is maybe less because of the corona and maybe more to the recession that we will see, that also both some printing companies will see hard time ahead of them. I also think that some of the more conventional media will have to rethink their business models in order to survive this crisis. I think that every crisis we see in the world have, it's kind of times where they need to reinvent themselves. And if you can't reinvent yourself into the new times where the needs are different, I think you have a hard time surviving, honestly.
And recessions always, history tells us this, recessions are always about the survival of the fittest, or in a lot of cases, those most capable of adapting.
You mean the richest, right?
Maybe. But that's some, a lot of money doesn't give you the ability to adapt, because in some cases it makes you lazy and thinks that you don't have to. So I think with the depth and strength of the recession that we are in and are about to see the extent of, then the need for adaptability has never been greater. Once again, you have a privileged view of the industry from all sides. Can you see any major casualties coming from this, from anywhere in the supply chain? And we know there's going to be winners and losers from this pandemic across the business spectrum, but in the print industry specifically, where are your fears?
There you already see casualties like LSC in the US, major bankruptcy just a few weeks old, which is, I think you should go and see Mark Michelson from PI World. He has done some really good articles and interviews about the situation in the US from this perspective. I also think from a vendor's perspective that is a rather sincere concern about Xerox's strategy after they had to abandon the deal with or try to take over HP. I mean, it can sound strange to a lot of people that first you come up with a bit of spending so much money that you hardly can imagine the size of the check, and then a few weeks later they have to abandon this because of the crisis, and now people are even questioning the survival. Xerox as brand and Xerox as products will of course survive, but maybe in a different shape and a different way, maybe acquired by somebody. I think that a lot of vendors as well will have to rethink some of the strategies. I mentioned Heidelberg before. I think that Heidelberg is a great company. They do fantastic products and services. I just think they have lost a little bit in touch with the customers and the needs. And I think that is something, it's something that they have to work to get covered in some way. I can't tell how and why. I'm just saying, and I'm not suggesting that they won't survive. I'm just saying that if you want to thrive and grow in a recession time, you need to have the right plans for it.
Absolutely, and this is what I mean by the ability to adapt is the key to survival to a certain extent, more so than money, because having it doesn't mean you know what to do with it. And I think that's a very good point about Xerox and HP. Actually, it might be interesting to see that it comes the other way around, maybe in a few months' time. Who knows?
I can tell you that one of the concerns or consideration I've had, and that is pure speculations, but I share it with you anyway, is that when Carl Icahn entered the stage for Xerox, and where he was kind of pushing maybe a little bit to Jeff Jacobson, who is now heading EFI, about the deal that was suggested with Fujifilm. I think that was the golden moment for Xerox. They should probably have accepted the offer at that time, because some of the equipment that is sold under the Xerox brand is developed and produced by Fuji. And today Xerox is maybe in a situation where they have, I don't know, maybe they don't really have any products to sell next year, right?
Well, we're all billionaires in hindsight, aren't we? As we know. So we're coming to the end of our little chat today, Morten, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll continue to be so. Just tell me, just to sort of wrap up today, what would you say your one wish for the print industry going forward from this time? Any part of it, any sector of it? What would your one wish be that this period of time would allow the change that was necessary, but never had the time to effect? We've got this luxury gap now, haven't we? Really, if we can call it that. I know that sounds wrong in the context of the health crisis, but how many times do you have this amount of time to think about how you go forward? What would your one wish be?
Oh, one wish, Richard, that is unfair. Okay, my one wish for the printing industry is that we stop thinking of how our metrics should be comparable to social media and electronic media. I think we have way more values than with print, and if we try to compare it with social media and the kind of mantra that Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter and all those channels have given us, I think that we're measuring on wrong terms. So I think that is maybe my biggest one wish, to let people and the industry and our customers actually look at print in a different perspective, really understanding the value of having tactile communication and have something that has a way longer shelf life than when you have with anything that is instant, basically.
Morten Reitoft, you are a wonderful guest. Thank you very much for your time today. I can't shake your hand or give you a hug, but we'll do the elbow, the virtual elbow. There we go. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Lovely to see you. Stay safe, and we'll see you very, very soon, I'm sure.